we haven't had a U.S. soldier killed in an airstrike in 57 years, you could quickly conclude we don't need an Air Force. The reason we haven't had a soldier or a Marine killed in an airstrike in 57 years is because we have, wherever we choose to, wherever we need to, air superiority. In fact, you could make an argument wherever we go when we put our mind to it, we have air supremacy, or we have complete control of the skies. So when we fought Iraqi freedom, we had absolute control of the skies from the very beginning of the conflict. In fact, unlike Desert Storm, where the Iraqis launched about a half a dozen or so airplanes, maybe a few more, they didn't launch a single airplane in Iraqi freedom. The Iraqi Air Force did not participate at all. The role of the Navy has changed, and we are still capable of fighting a sea battle, if you will. But a sea battle in the classic World War II sense, sort of the Battle of San Bernardino Straits is the one that comes to mind to me, where it's a nighttime battle. The Japanese ships don't have radar, we do, but it's waters that they're familiar with, we're not so familiar. And you've got cruisers and destroyers and I think some light battleships, kind of toe-to-toe firing guns at each other. We're not going to have that kind of a battle again because we use our weapons even in some sort of a maritime superiority evolution. We'll use standoff weapons. We have weapons that we can launch from our ships or from our submarines that are designed to go after enemy ships. The last time we had an opportunity really to exercise that was in Operation Praying Mantis in 1988 in the Arabian Gulf against the Iranians. And we used both surface-launched and air-launched anti-ship missiles and weapons in order to inflict some damage on the Iranian Navy, enough damage to make them stop doing what they were doing. That was sort of the end of the tanker wars, if you remember those. That doesn't mean we don't need a Navy. So because you asked the question, and it's a great question, we have to answer that same question to Congress, because they go, well, what happened to the battleships? Big guns, everybody's shooting at each other, crossing the T, Horatio Nelson, Battle of Trafalgar, all that good stuff. Come on. Well, this is what we do, and we write it all down. We update it with great regularity, and we study it quite a bit. But these are the missions of the U.S. Navy. We are currently part of the Forward Presence mission because we're going to go forward. We're going to go away from our home port to a different part of the world, and then we're going to be utilized in a way that the people that we work for, the combat commander, the fleet commander, require in order to accomplish the missions that they're required to accomplish. We have a carrier strike group, the George Washington Strike Group, that's based in Japan. They live in Yokosuka, Japan, which is a suburb of Tokyo, but Tokyo doesn't have any suburbs. It's all like Los Angeles, except bigger. We still have a deterrence mission, which is our ballistic missile submarines. And so if you remember back from the Cold War days, we developed a nuclear triad, so did the Soviets, where we had long-range bombers that could carry nuclear weapons. We had missile silos in the Midwest and western part of the United States that could launch ballistic missiles anywhere in the world. And then we had submarines that have ballistic missiles. All three of those legs of the triad still exist. And it does provide a deterrent effect to rational state actors. So if you're Iran, anything that you do, you've got to consider the capabilities of the United States and the fact that we could have a ballistic missile submarine that can target targets anywhere in Iran, and they have no idea where it is or when it's going to be employed. And so that has a dampening effect on some of the rhetoric and some of the activity that they take part in. What it doesn't do is deter non-rational state actors. So you could make an argument that the North Koreans are non-rational, although they're a state actor. Then you have organizations like Al-Qaeda, who, our nuclear deterrence means nothing to them because they're all prepared to die in the cause, and as many other people that become martyrs, the better off we'll all be. But we still have that mission. Sea control is one of our missions. I talked about the Strait of Hormuz. Can you put the Central Command slide up again, Tart, please? This is the Strait of Hormuz right here. It's about, at its narrowest point, 18 miles wide. Oftentimes when you hear people talk about our policies in the Middle East, it's all about oil. It's really much broader than that, although oil is the commodity that does come out of the Middle East, and you can't get around that. But it's not so much about oil as it's about a peaceful, prosperous global economy that everybody in the world can benefit from. If you happen to stop by, and I've been led to believe that there's a Walmart in Hawaii, but I haven't seen it. If you stop by the Walmart the next time you drive by it and you walk inside, look around and understand that about 80% of what's on the shelf spent at least some time on a ship before it got to that shelf. That's the global economy. What fuels the global economy in part is safe shipping, which the United States is uniquely postured because of the Navy to be able to ensure a stable shipping environment around the globe. But what also fuels it is oil, and 40% of the oil used each and every day in the world comes right out of here and through this strait. So if this strait's closed on Monday, then the world has 40% less oil to use than it had on Sunday. And when you consider the fact, in particular, last summer, where you know, a bombing attack in Iraq could drive the price of oil up by 5 or 10%, you know, at the drop of a hat, closing the Strait of Hormuz would have a potentially disastrous effect on the global economy. So one of the things that we have taken on as a mission is to protect these vital choke points and make sure they stay open. And in CENTCOM alone, there's the Strait of Hormuz, there's the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, which is the southern part of the Red Sea, which is even narrower, and then there's the Suez Canal. So just in that one area of responsibility, there's 3 choke points. The Strait of Malacca, which is over near Indonesia and Singapore, is another choke point. It's one of the busiest, in fact I believe it's the busiest strait in the world in terms of commercial traffic. So things coming out of China, not destined for the United States, will go through the Strait of Malacca into Africa or into Europe or into the Mideast. So it's very busy. The Strait of Gibraltar coming out of the Mediterranean. So all of those choke points, it's important that the global community understands and feels like they're safe to transit through, and that's part of what the U.S. Navy does.
Admiral, in the Strait of Hormuz, this area here, how many navies are operating in there?
On any given day, and this kind of goes up and down, but there's about 45 ships, roughly, that cover the whole gambit, all of Central Command. Inside the Gulf, it varies, just as outside the Gulf it varies. Today I would tell you, routinely you have the Emiratis, the UAE, the Qataris, the Bahrainis, and the Kuwaitis and Saudis all have navies, and they're all fairly modest, would be the way to say it. They're not enormously capable, but they don't really see themselves as maritime powers. But they have enough navy to guard their coast, and we are able to work in a fashion cooperatively with them. When I talk about blessings and curses about maritime operations, the Saudis might not be all that enthused about having 100,000 U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia, but they don't, because they have to explain that to their people, because you know it's kind of hard to hide 100,000 troops. But they don't mind going out to sea and operating with the U.S. Navy for a couple of days because nobody sees that. And so we get a lot of cooperation in the maritime environment that we might not get in the boots on the ground environment, if you will, because it doesn't need to be explained by, these are all the GCC countries: Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, and the Emirates. So they're more willing to cooperate, as are other nations. We have a pretty good counter-piracy effort that goes on off the coast of Somalia right now. There's a NATO mission that's there. And in addition, on national tasking, it is not at all unusual to have the Australians, the French, the British, the Dutch, the Italians, and some of them will come into the Gulf from time to time and operate, and especially the Australians and the Brits. Others will stay outside. But there's more than just that. I left CENTCOM just over a year ago. There were 64 nations represented at CENTCOM. So 64 countries had sent military people to Central Command to serve as liaison officers. Some of them are fairly vocal about it, the Brits and Australians in particular. Some of them are less vocal about it, and you know, they don't necessarily want it advertised. Our job is not to help them characterize it or tell them how to characterize it. It's to help them characterize it in ways that they want to characterize it. So there's a coalition effort. Out of the 45 ships, it's generally fair to say about 15 or so are coalition warships.